Hi, my name is Emily. Welcome to Jacey's Creek, where I talk about Pacey as a couple and as individuals. Before we even get into this podcast episode, I want to point out that this episode will probably be an hour long because there is no Pacey and Joey, as sad as that is. So I want to point that out because if this episode is a little bit shorter than normal, I do apologize. But there is just not that many things I can talk about. But here is why I'm still doing this episode. Because I always say it every single episode, and I have not said it yet. Let me say it. Hi, welcome to Jacey's Creek, where I talk about Pacey and Joey as a couple and as individuals. Because there are so many scenes where you can get into a TV show and then they bring parallels onto the table. And this week, this is an episode based off of Pacey and Joey and parallels. So, one of the many reasons why I like this episode is because I feel like there's so many things that goes on that is just highly noted about their personalities. Like, we learn so many things about Pacey's parents, or Pacey siblings, or Pacey and how he acts towards Tamara, and I feel like there was so many things where I'm like, Pacey, you should have known. And the next episode is where we find out that we see Pacey get caught from the whole school and the whole town finding out about Tamara Jacobs and him, which that took them 6 episodes, which, jeez, that took them a long time. Voice crack right there. And then there is Joey. Joey Potter on the table right here, everybody. We see how she reacts when Dawson is mad at her, because remember, it was her fault that she was lying to Dawson. Like, no, it was not her fault. And we see how the hurricane episode is basically based off of Gail and Mitch, and how Mitch finds out that Gail is having an affair on him with Bob with the soft B. I swear I'm never going to say that name right. But I want to point that out there because I know that as I'm going along with this episode, I didn't want anyone to think that I was doing this episode because, like I have to do every single episode. No, in a lot of ways, no, I don't have to. But I always start off with as a couple and as individuals, and I just wanted to throw it out there. But in case this is your first time here, hi, welcome. I hope you stay around. And if you have not already, make sure to follow me on Instagram at Twitter and Potter. I literally just post all my thoughts on every single episode that I get a hold of. So if there's like a day where it'll be like random, out of order, season 5, or season 6, or season 3. One day I'm going to get to season 1. It's probably going to be when this whole season is over with. And then I'm going to go on to season 2. And let me just say, I cannot wait to do season 2. I know there's not that many scenes with them, but I'm just going to say, Pacey in season 2 made me fall in love with Pacey. And Joey in season 2, she just grew. Like, I don't know what it was. Actually, she grew in season 3 when she was with Pacey. But season 2 is honestly going to be my favorite one, probably for a long time, until I get to season 3, 4, and 5, and 6. I cannot wait. If you have not already, go follow me on TikTok. That's Pacey and Joey. And go follow. And if you have not already, subscribe to this YouTube channel if you're watching on YouTube. If you have not watched on YouTube and you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, go rate this podcast and let me give you one good reason why you should. I know this is not perfect. This is literally just me giving my own advice, giving my own opinions on life and how I can relate to this podcast. And I know there's so many people out there that can agree with me on this. There's so many people that don't know what Dawson's Creek is. And I feel like we all connect together and make our own opinions and our own assumptions of what happens throughout the show. So I feel like if we come together, and we just break this podcast, we subscribe to the YouTube channel, we can grow as a community. Or Instagram. We're about to reach 2,000 followers on Instagram, and I'm so proud of myself for that. So this is my point in saying this. The reason why you should rate this podcast is I believe it brings more people to the podcast, but I could be wrong. And if you do rate it, please leave a reason why you like it. Even if you absolutely despise this podcast, you're helping. That's just not gonna... When I listen to a podcast, I don't read the reviews because Apple, I don't have Apple. And so I'm really curious for the people that do have Apple, what their thoughts on this podcast is. But without further ado, let's get into this podcast. So this is Season 1, Episode 5, and it is called Hurricane. And this came out on February 17th, 1998, which I was not born during that time. I'm currently 17, and the show ended the May of the same year I was born. But okay. There are 6 scenes of Joey, 7 scenes of Pacey, and 0 scenes of them together. I'm so sad about that. But I love Pacey and Joey, so it doesn't even matter. Editing Emily here. I wanted to say there was actually 7 scenes of Joey, and this happened a lot with Pacey too, in the first 2 episodes, maybe 3, where it'll be random clips of just in shots on his face. And I believe this happened last episode as well, and I just never know where to place it. So I say that there is let's say 5 scenes, but I didn't actually know where to place it. So I'll be there's 5 scenes of Pacey, and there would actually be 7. I'm wait a minute, I messed that up. So the reason why I'm actually pointing this out is because it happens a lot, and I just don't want you guys to think that I don't know what I'm doing. I promise I do. Number 2, I wanted to say, if you have not already, go on YouTube. I did this thing where you can watch along with me as I speak about this show. It's gonna be a thing that I'm gonna try to keep up with depending on how I'm feeling that week or what's going on. And my goal and mine is to keep it up on YouTube because I know that there's a lot of people out there who may not speak the same language as me and they're trying to learn English, or I know there's a lot of people that may just plainly not be into podcasts as much as I am. So I just wanted to help you guys out there and say that if you wanted to, you could easily just watch it with me. And I hope that you do. And without further ado, let's get on to the episode. The show start. I have no clue. But they're, of course, watching Twister as the hurricane is going on. And the wind knocks over a picture of Stillbird. Because what else would be next to Dawson's bedside? I don't know. Dawson then asks, what's next? And Joey replies with, I vote for Poseidon Adventure. Which Dawson then replies with, yeah, but the Towery Infra had a higher body count. Joey then tells him that Poseidon is more interesting because everything is upside down. I love the way that she says that. But then Dawson doesn't turn on Poseidon, sadly, because why would Dawson listen to her? I have no clue. Because Dawson never listens to Joey, ever. I would say Dawson gets better throughout the whole show. No, he doesn't. That's why I don't want to review Dawson's Creek, because Dawson just isn't it. But then he, of course, turns on the Weather Center to find out whether they were going to go to school because of the hurricane or not. Which then they learned that they were off of school, which they then high-fived to, and the way that Joey looks in the scene, let me just say, is adorable. Joey gives, Dawson, this knowing smile. I don't know what it is, but I just always found that very funny. We then see Gail, of course, on Dawson's television because Weather Center equals Gail and Bob with the soft B, telling them, which I believe this is going to be the last episode that I ever say Bob with soft B. So, hooray to that! We're like Joey and Dawson where they clap because of no school. We're hurraying at this last episode. Bob leaving in this episode because Mitch finds out about the affair, which finally took you 5 episodes to figure out that your wife is having a stupid affair. Gail tells Bob with a soft B it could be a good day just to stay in bed. Dawson then asks Joey if they could be any more obvious, which I'm sure Joey was the same way that I reacted to this, which was, yes, Dawson, they could have been more obvious, but you probably wouldn't even notice if they jumped the bones after the broadcast, because that's what he says. Dawson turns off the television. Joey and Dawson sit quietly. Joey looks at him so carefully before just thinking on what she was going to say to him, and she asked if his mom knew, and he said no. And she asked, your dad? And he says, probably clueless, which you were right. 20 years with this woman, you wouldn't expect that your wife is having an affair, but sure enough, there he is. There she is. There's Bob with the soft B. And there's Dawson and Joey getting in the middle of it, because who else want to get in the middle of it when you're 15? But she just gives a small nod to. She then says, Paul Newton or Gene Hackman, and for the first time ever on the show, for the 5 episodes that we have reviewed, Dawson says that he is tired and he just wants to sack. Because that's what Dawson says after putting him and Joey in every single time that she wants to leave. That's a no-no. But every time that he's tired, Joey's just magically okay with it. Joey then says, that's fine, I'll see you tomorrow. And as Joey puts on her shoe, reminds Dawson that he is going to have to deal with this. She says, and she adds Dawson, because when do they ever add a sentence that doesn't have their name in it? I don't know. Dawson replies with, everything is postponed because of the hurricane, my life included. Which I wish I could say that for snow days. Like, just because school is canceled, I decide to mentally shut down. Which I do. I have done that. When we were off for like a week for the snow days, if you're in the US, you may understand this. We had a whole week off for snow days, right? And I don't have to go to school. I only have to go to school on Friday. So whenever I'm just not having it, sometimes I mentally shut down and do whatever the crap I feel like. But on this snow day, I just sat there watching the affair, not caring about life, not just like reading fan fiction, because that's normal for a teenage girl to do, and continuously watching Dawson Creek. My life was postponed because of the snow day. But Joey, like anyone else in my life, was saying that the snow day doesn't matter. But in this case, that tells him that his life is a hurricane. And Dawson states how I feel most of the time with the show. He goes, no metaphors, Joey, it's too late. Joey then lifts up her hand like, whatever, and then she says later. And then Dawson says, see you tomorrow, Joey. And Joey says, hey, Dawson. And he says, yeah. She said, it's gonna be a bumpy life, and then she leaves. We then see the first scene of Pacey, and for the first time ever, we see Doggy, which I can't tell if I like Dog in the first season or if I don't like Dog in the first season. So we're gonna see how we like him, because I just think Dog is so clueless in this episode, and I just want to shake him. But is it just me, or this guy is just extremely good looking? Like, extremely good looking. Like, I don't care if he has a wife and 2 kids. Like, I already crush on Joshua Jackson. But I did look him up today, just to like get a picture before I start talking about him. I'm saying that he's good looking, and he's still good looking. Like, he's 51, but I'm like, ooh, okay, you're still as good as you looked on this show. Which made me think, I'm like, he's 30? But then I'm like, the guy who played Jack turned 50 this year. So I'm like, oh, okay. Pacey then tells Doug that I just want it known that I am here in complete distress. Which Doug replies with, oh, just stop your punk-ass whining. And then we see like this very close up of the police car as Doug is closing it. And I think the reason why the show is trying to like show that part is because they just want their audience to have an idea of what Pacey's home life is like. His brother being a cop, and then it continues on with knowing that his dad is a cop. And it really gives the picture of what and why Pacey goes for Damara, and why he just kind of accepts it, because he just wants to feel loved. We then see Pacey explaining how school's off today. It's my one chance to sleep in, catch up on my soaps, enjoy the storm, which is exactly how I felt on the snow day, where I catched up on the fair and enjoyed my fan fiction, because why not? Because I don't know why, to be honest, and I just enjoyed the snow because life was good. Life was amazing. And that's also how I feel on a Saturday morning when the birds are chirping at 5 a.m. because it's my one day off and the birds just keep chirping and it irritates me so much. I'm just like, shut up. But they're like, tweet, 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 tweet. Does anyone else have this problem, or is that just me? This is why I don't like springtime. We then see Doug say, hey, Dad's orders. And Pacey, of course, mocks him with saying Dad's order, and he says that you sound like a lapdog and enthusiastic. Replies with, you know I'm gonna kick your ass. And Pacey replies with, oh, you're so brunch, Dougie. And the way that his voice says it, like, his whole tone and voice in this, in fact, the whole episode, I think this is the first time that we see Pacey without Tamara, like, without even really being around Tamara. And I just want to say, it just shows his personality way too much. Which then Doug replies with, oh, screw you. Pacey says, Doug, you're gonna have to learn how to process these hostile outbursts of rage. I mean, any therapist is gonna tell you that there are many repercussion tactics to mask your true homosexual desires. Which Dougie then states, just because I'm pretty doesn't mean I'm gay. I happen to be the straightest guy I know. Like, how many guys do you know, Doug? Pacey then says, oh really? I think your CD collection would contradict that. Barbara stands to list me, and then Doug cuts him off by saying, I have an interesting and soft complexion. Which Doug, okay then, because that's what all ladies like. Which Pacey then says, you know, Doug, you don't have to defend yourself to me. As he puts his hand on Doug's shoulder, I just want you to live a happy and fruitful life. Pacey, no! The way that he says, fruitful life. Doug tells him that woman happened to love my CD collection. I mean, and Pacey gets hit with a flag by Doug as instead of like Pacey like screaming at him or like stopping what he's talking about, he continues to be just the annoying brother that he is being at the moment, and he just smiles and runs after Doug as Doug is just walking away. Pacey then tells him, Answer me this. Why do you choose a profession that requires you to dress like one of the village's people? And Doug says, I choose to wear a badge because our father, the chief of police of Quayside, insisted in me a duty of fulfillment and justice. Which, again, proves the whole family thing based off of Pacey, because they're just trying to make it well known that this Pacey Witter, the chief's son, and the brother who is a police, is doing these legal activities with the teacher because, Pacey had a 15-year-old while he's just going on with a 35-year-old, because that makes complete sense. Sarcasm entered right there. He again continues by saying, right, which makes it harder for you to come out. I understand that, Doug. I'm sure that they're a support group for gay officers. Doug then grabs onto Pacey's shirt, which I hate the way that Pacey kind of listened to him as Doug was saying, listen, Pacey, I'm not gay. Which Pacey sighs and then straightens himself up with a smile like he was still thinking in the back of his head, sure you're not gay. I'm sure you're not. Then we see scene 2 of Joey. We see Bessie and Bodie fighting over whether the baby should be circumcised and la-di-da-di-da. The way that Pacey and Joey fight is exactly how Bessie and Bodie fight, because the way that they're just fighting just reminds me of an older version of the two. He walks in with a flower pot because they're all moving their stuff because of the hurricane. She goes, Junior's foreskin will be a non-issue. We will away in Tomahu. Bodie then tells them that this is just a warning. These things never come as far north. Joey then votes that they go to Dawson, and Bessie's like, hey, not a bad idea, because she just wants to get out of the whole situation. And Bodie's like, just because you're pregnant does not mean that you can get out of this situation. And Bessie smiles at him and just goes, watch me, as Joey just kind of rolls her eyes and walks away. And I love this because this goes back to the part where I said, Bessie and Bodie reminds me of an older version of Pacey and Joey. Scene 2 of Pacey across the beach, and he's just aggressively putting down these flagpoles, and then guess who he sees? Guess who makes him super duper happy? Drum roll, please! You guessed it, it was Tamara at her house. And what does Pacey do? Let me just give you a minute to guess. He runs over and goes, Tammy! Which I don't know why I laughed at the nickname every single time this came up on this episode. He goes, hey Tamara, which Pacey then walks over to Tamara as though he was about to kiss her. And she goes, no you don't, while backing up, which that's a good reaction. You should have continued doing that throughout the whole 6 episodes that you were there. But no, you continue, 7 if you count season 2. But no, every single time, you kiss him. You kiss him, and I don't, makes me mad. I'm just like, now you get the message because the brother's there. Because Dougie was right there. Doug say, yo, Pacey, give me a hand here. Which Tamara tries to act all cool by saying how his brother was nice enough to secure the place, and then Pacey goes, oh yeah, he's a great guy, which he has like this bitterness in his voice. But I then quickly had to turn into Miss Jacobs as she continued to act throughout this whole entire scene by saying, how's your homework coming? I hope this bad weather is giving you a chance to catch up on your reading, which Pacey just smiles at her very politely. But no, Dougie could not take this for a word whatsoever, because he goes, he's a goof, and he hasn't cracked a book since 3rd grade. Which Miss Jacobs tells Doug he is doing quite well, Officer Witter, which, yeah, he's doing quite well in the sex department. Maybe not in the education department, because remember the 2, 3 prime numbers, prime ribs conversation? Yeah, he's doing quite well, and I wonder why he's doing quite well. Which, yeah, Doug, again, you might want to check up on this case, because she calls him Officer Witter, which how does she not get intimidated by his family being an officer? Then puts his shoulder against the wall and he goes, "And what can I call you?" Before Tamara could even answer, we see Pacey say, "Miss Jacobs would be fine," but Tamara says, "Or you can call me Tamara, whatever you like." Doug says Tamara and then lifts his cap, and then like this big thunder came in and Tamara gets so scared as she explains how she doesn't do well in bad weather, and Pacey's face just looks so concerned for her. Until Doug says something to you about that, and Pacey just glares at Doug. Like, I'm not talking about like a sweet, like, he went from sweet little Pacey concerned about the woman, and then he hears that we will have to do something about that, and he just goes, "Excuse me, you're talking to my woman?" Which Pacey, 25-year-old, maybe 24-year-old, to a 35-year-old woman, maybe, possibly, I don't really know her age. That's not a bad gap, like 10 years, not that bad, not gonna lie. But you being 15 and she being 35, there's a big difference right there. I'm not gonna lie. And then Tamara is kind of laughing at what Doug just said, but then she stops laughing when she sees Pacey's face, and she's like, "See ya, wouldn't wanna be ya." See scene 3 of Joey. Keep in mind this is after the whole fight with Dawson and Jen. And the whole time, Joey was in the closet. So that's possibly why Dawson was mad at her, but it just annoys me. We then hear Joey sneezing in the closet after Jen slams the door, and Dawson is feeling like the whole world is against him. We then see Dawson stomping over to the closet because he's like, "Don't even tell me that she's in there." And then he opens up the closet, and Joey cutely says, "Don't mind me, just passing through," and she got up because I love how she's always in the closet. Dawson then says he can't escape and asks what is she even doing here as he sits down. Which, let me just say, I love Joey's jacket in this. It's like a blue stripe and white jacket. And I realized that the whole season 1 has Joey in stripes, or Katie Holmes in stripes, and she looks so good in it. Like, I think that's the whole main thing with her outfit right here. As with just regurgitating for a moment, remember how we used to play in there when we were kids? You react the whole third scene from Jobs, which I hate how Dawson, instead of being like, "Yeah, I remember that, Joey, that was so much fun," he just dismissed her completely, and Joey just continues, like, going on by saying, "Come on, I mean, you're Captain Quint, and I'd be both Hopper and Sheriff Birdie, and we knew all the lines heart by heart," which finally Dawson realized that they aren't kids anymore, because the way that he just looks, and he brings on this whole long sentence about it, and the whole time that I'm thinking, I'm just like, shut up, Dawson. The moment that she brought up the sleepover thing, you get all offended, but the moment that you realize, because my mom was having an affair, that means I need to grow up. Because my best friend never told me about the affair, that means that she was lying to me. Just because the girl that I want to be with is not a virgin means that my life is completely ruined because, why go after her if she's not a virgin? which that's wrong in so many ways. But Joey continues by saying, but wouldn't it be nice? She was like, we could just do all these different things. We could go in the closet, act like everything is completely okay, and play Jaws. And she's like, wouldn't that be nice if we did that? And then she looks up at him and says, it's up there with the sleeping over on we're too old for this list, I see. Dawson doesn't say anything, and Joey then says, look, I know you're still mad at me for lying to you. Which, pause, Joey, he was not lying to you. I'm still mad about this. Every single time I see the episode where he's like, you lied to me, I'm always like, give me a few minutes. I need to pause right here because I know that she was not lying to him. And then it continues by saying, even if you won't admit it, there's residue all over your face. But then Dawson, of course, tells her to leave because if Joey brings it up, oh my god, it's the end of the world. Finally someone tells him. But he makes this lame excuse by saying that he has this verbal word vomit is out of control today. And Joey then tells him, I know what you're going through, Dawson. You're struggling to find answers. You want to know why she's cheating, but it's all about perspective, Dawson. Dawson then just shakes his head. He doesn't even say anything. He doesn't say a word to Joey, and I hate it so much. And then finally, Joey just pops off on him. She was trying to be all nice and sweet because she understands what it's like to have a parent cheat. But the moment that Dawson just shakes his head, you could see the anger building up. And she's like, let me just give you the 1 ounce of wisdom that I can bring to this table. Instead of asking why your mom's doing all these horrible things, may I suggest that you get on your knees and thank God that you have a mother? Which, Joey, ooh, girl, I felt that. I honestly felt that. Joey then starts walking to the door, and Dawson's like, oh crap, I messed up big time. And he was like, Joey. And then she says, sorry, Dawson, I forgot for a second. This isn't about me. And then shuts the door. Which, that's better than saying, bye. Have a nice life. Of Joey. We see her on the couch downstairs at Dawson's house. As Bessie and Bodie are still trying to figure out how to get on Mrs. Ryan's good side, while Mitch says that he hopes that Bob watches out for himself. Joey gives a glare at Mr. O'Leary, and then she says, you shouldn't worry about Bob, Mr. O'Leary. Which, the way that Mitch looked at her what? And then continues looking at the television, is the same expression and the same reaction as Dawson had when she told him that he had it right the first time. They just get this blank expression. And then of Joey. We then see the next scene of Joey. She is sitting on the staircase as Mrs. Clary walks in and shuts the door. The two says nothing, and as she's sitting down, Mrs. Clary goes, and then she goes, this is really, and while Joey's just sitting there, looking other way, not looking at her, just you're gonna try to talk me out of this, but I don't understand why you are, and she's not even looking at her. She's not even trying to acknowledge that Mrs. Larry is even there, because that's just Joey when she's angry. Which, me too, girl, me too. Mrs. Clary then says, every sentence that comes her way just comes up with the F word. And Joey says, don't hold back on my account, I heard it before. Gail then tells her I'm the adult, which was to set an example. Which, one, you aren't doing a very good job by cheating. And 2, finally, someone admits that they're an adult on the show. Like, there was the only person that has ever acted like their age was Mitch. And that's only for the first 5 episodes. Joey then tells her that I would just stick with the F word if I were you. Gail goes, I've been very selfish. And Joey says, seems to run in your family. But then Larry looks at Joey and says, but I'm ending it. And Joey looks at Gail and nods her head, who just slightly nods. We then see scene 3 of Pacey. We then see Ducky Doug sitting down at the flowers at the table as Pacey is just glaring at him at Tamara's house. Tamara then walks over and says that it's nice that the 2 of you stayed, as she brings out a tray. And then Doug tries to pick up this flower pot. Then Pacey gets up and fights, like, he's like, no, I got it. And then, like, he's like, I got it. But then Doug ends up winning because older brother, I guess. They always end up winning. I'm the oldest kid, and I always end up winning, so. And then Tamara continues by the whole time explaining that she didn't realize the hurricane would come up this north. And Doug says, I'm an officer of the law. It's my job to protect the people. And Tamara says, as long as I'm not keeping you guys from anything. And Doug sits back down and says, oh no. Then we hear a loud bang and she asks, what was that? And Doug was like, don't worry, I got you, Tammy. But then he walks out and he goes, ah! Tamara then goes, your brother is very nice. And Pacey goes, he's a closet case. And Tamara then goes, what? And Pacey says, 100% gay man. I mean, he likes to keep it quiet. You know, being an officer of the law in a small town. Tamara then asks if his dad knew. And Pacey says, my parents are in denial about this. It's really an ugly situation. He then smiles and looks up at her and says, but how have you been, Tammy? Which I love the difference between when Doug called her Tammy and then when Pacey called her Tammy. Notice the difference, Pacey? Notice the difference? I don't think you do. He then gets up and starts to come on to her, and she's like, not with your badge brother outside. Quick reminder, this is a felony. And I'm just like, you don't say it, Tamara. You don't say that it's a felony. Like, and Pacey goes, that's the attraction. And then he says, I've been missing you. And Tamara goes, I've been missing you too. But, and then she kisses him. And then she goes, there, you happy? But he pulls her in and she laughs as she falls to the floor and the tablecloth falls off too. Like, be a little bit careful with your badge brother outside, Pacey. But no, that doesn't bug him. He's like, like, Tamara, like, I love you, Tamara. Like, be my. He's like, be my baby, be my little baby, be my. I'll make you happy, baby. Just wait and see. That's exactly how Pacey is feeling at the moment. Pacey is on top of her and she's covered in ketchup when Doug was like, there's nothing going on. And then he just sees like this whole scene and Pacey helps her up while Doug just, there's a zoom in effect on his face, just like in pure shock of what's happening. Doug, Pacey, and Tamara by the fireplace, and Doug says, Tammy, I'm really sorry about my brother. We had to put up with this pinhead and bones for years. He's kind of the embarrassment of the family, you know? I'm really sorry. Pacey, meanwhile, was just lighting up the candles like a gentleman that he was. Like, Doug, I don't see you lighting up the candles. I'm like, And then he sits down while Tamara explains how it was her fault and she ran into him and that she's the clumsy one. Which, sure, Tamara, whatever you want to say to get yourself by, like whatever you want to do so you don't get arrested. We then see Doug look down at the board game and ask her, what do we gotta do here? And she said that she is just writing out the Storm Entertainment, and Doug asked if she ever played the If game. Tamara then says, no, how do you play that? And Doug explains that it's a good way to get to know each other. And then the screen goes on to Pacey's face, which is just plain annoyed by the whole situation. And then Doug explains how the If game is a great way to get to know each other because, let's say, if you had one fruit, which fruit would it be? And then he gives that example. And then once he's done explaining, Pacey puts up the fire stick that he had from the candles and then says, I vote for Monopoly. That game has a point. But of course, Doug continues going on, and Pacey is left listening to the two talking about what if. And then Doug asks her, if you had to move, where would you go? And she said, easy, New York, it's my hometown. And he asks why would she move there, and she says, it's because I needed a change. We knew. And then we figure out that she had a dysfunctional ex-husband in New York, and it wasn't big enough for the two of them. Alright. And then we see Pacey's face and thought as she said this, and then Doug explains how if he was her ex-husband, he would be full of regret about now. Like, yeah, you would be in full regret right now if you figured out what was happening between your little brother and Miss Jacobs, like sweet Miss Jacobs that you were trying to flirt with the whole entire time. Pacey then goes and turns and says, Ducky, if you could star in any Broadway musical, what would you choose? And Tamara just looks at him and just like, she's like, are you jealous? That's what she kind of looks like. But, of course, when Doug answered this, it only led him and Tamara to bond over the plays. I love how Pacey just asked Doug, like, which Broadway musical would you star in? Thinking that this was going to, like, make Tamara not very interested in him, but it only made Tamara more interested in him just for that time being. But I think the only reason why she was talking to him because she thought he was gay. I think she was just trying to be polite. Like, Pacey, ever heard of trying to be polite for a minute there? I'm kidding. Pacey's one of the politest one on the show. We then see scene 5 of Joey. We see Joey outside and Jen walks in and Joey, surprised, says, what are you doing out here? It's pretty cold. And Jen replies with, it's pretty cold in there too. Like, burn! Oh, wait, freeze! And then Jen asks, what is she doing out there? We then see Joey look over at Mr. Leary. This was after they figured out what the whole affair thing, and that's when Mr. Leary was just sitting in his car. And she said, just watching Mr. Leary, and Jen says, I guess it really hit the fan today. Joey then asks what she was of course thinking, and says, so, where's Dawson? And Jen says, don't care, I'm taking a break. Which, me too, Jen. Me too. Anytime people like Dawson this and that, I'm like, I shut you out. I have shut you out completely. Joey then says, it's just an ego thing. I mean, how could there possibly be anyone before me? How could I measure up? Laughs as she said, is it Is he really that child? And then Joey says, I'm pretty sure there's a measuring tapes sitting in his bathroom right now. Jen asks, what do you think the markup is? And Joey goes, what do you mean? And I love the way that she looks in this whole thing. She just looks so innocent and so cute. And I know that she's not innocent and cute, but the way that, like, it tries to portray, Joey just gets all flushed in this moment is just so cute to me. Because it goes on to say, do you think Dawson is a rifle or a pistol? And Joey goes, how would I know? And Jen goes, oh, come on. And the two stare at one another. And then Joey then says, Dawson was wrong to spread his anger at his mom onto you. And Jen asks how have you heard about that? And Joey explains how she eavesdrops. She goes, involuntary eavesdrops. Yeah, Joey just sitting in a closet, just eavesdropping on the whole situation, and then makes an excuse that it's just about childhood play games. Jen then says, I guess I'm no longer the Virgin Queen in Dawson's glary handheld fantasy. Joey then says, yeah, I think Dawson's having a life-defining turning point in the moment right now. And Jen replies with, aren't we all? Joey then says, taking in consideration about his height, weight, feet, and hand size, I say he is slightly above average. And then Jen looks at him and says, oh, so you have thought about it. And Joey looks all flushed while giving Jen like those cutest, adorable smile. I love it so much. Pacey watching Doug and Tamara singing a play while he was waiting on Tamara, and then he just pointed at Tamara and goes, it's your turn. And Doug asks if she would like to go out with him sometime and catch a movie. Tamara then says that she would love to, and Pacey is just having this dead look on his eyes like, great. So my brother comes in and automatically he gets swept off the feet too. Which, Pacey, isn't this like a red flag? Your older brother comes in and therefore she kind of like goes after him as well. That's a little bit of a red flag, Pacey. Means how they can leave their baby brother at home and how it could be like a real date. And Tamara just laughs and says, not really like a real date. And Doug goes, why not? And she was like, because I know. And Pacey was just smirking the whole time while Doug was like, it's not because I'm too young. I mean, please don't pull the age thing on me. I'm 24, soon to be 25. Doug, trust me, it is not the age thing, because if it was the age thing, then she would not be dating a 15-year-old, or dating a 50-year-old, or I don't even know what this is anymore. Not at all. And she continues on by saying, I know that you are gay. And I love how she says gay. It's just like, I know that you're gay. Which Doug goes, what? And the look that Pacey gives is just like, I wonder, I had nothing to do with this. And then when it's how she lived in New York and she lived in Christopher Street, and I have a good gaydar. Which there's no such thing as gaydar, but we're gonna allow that to pass. I think this was just basically a scene of Tamara trying to comfort Doug, but really failing at it. Doug then looks at Pacey and says, you told her, didn't you? And he replies with, she has gaydar. Not gay. And Tamara goes, it's okay to be gay. And Pacey goes, exactly, that's what I've been trying to tell him, Tamara. And then out comes the gun. My daddy has a gun, my daddy has a gun, my daddy has a gun. And Pacey, and then Tamara's like, well, Pacey's like, he does this stuff all the time, which does perfectly describe the relationship with this family. How he's not only the embarrassment of the family, but he's just allowed, like, Doug is just allowed to pull a gun in front of him. And Doug repeats himself by saying, "Tell her I'm not gay." Say nothing, but he looks at Tamara's face and he says he's not gay. We see Doug, Pacey, and Tamara going out of the house, and Doug says that he would still like to take her out, and then he apologized about the gun thing. Which Tamara paused with, I have to be honest with you, Doug. I'm seeing someone right now, and Pacey is just smiling away. Doug was like, "Oh, okay," and then puts on his hat and says, "Come on, Squirt." And Pacey says, "Yes, sir, Deputy Doug." I love how he says Deputy Doug. Every time I want to say Doug, I always have to say Deputy Doug. Like, I'm just say it really fast. Say it with me. Deputy Doug, Deputy Doug, Deputy Doug. I don't know why that's so funny to me. And then Tamara smiles at the two of them. We then see the last scene of Pacey. Over to Tamara's house, and she asks, "What is he doing here? And where is your brother?" And Pacey explains how he's circled around. And she goes, "It's late, Pacey." Which, Tamara, I thought it was morning time, but okay. Pacey said he has one more question for her. And like a true gentleman that he was, he sees that she was struggling with the hammock, and he goes, I got it, which reminds me of season 6, episode 17, where he was helping Joey after the office with the bar. He then asks, if you could do one thing in your life, what would it be? And she goes, well, I wouldn't have married an fat stockbroker. Plot twist. Audrey is actually Tamara's ex-husband's daughter, because, Pacey and Audrey, when they went out, he came back and became a stockbroker because Audrey's dad was a stockbroker. Very funny right there. I just want to point that out. And then she goes, same question goes back to you. And then Pacey says, well, I'd be older, so I could tell the whole world about this wonderful woman who I'm rapidly falling in love with. Kind of reminds me of another scene with Audrey where he looks at her and he goes, I'm falling rapidly in love with you. And let me just say, anytime that Pacey says that, I think he does not mean that whatsoever. And then he says, did you really think that it was going to make me jealous by flirting with Deputy Doug? And Tamara then goes, flirting? I don't flirt. Pacey then wraps his arms around her and said, if she was trying to make him jealous, that it was unnecessary because I'm already jealous of every guy who ever been in your field of vision. And then he goes, who's known to smell your hair, who has your body against his. And then she says, we're getting all soppy, Pacey. We're gonna have to end this. It's getting too dangerous. Which, Tamara, where did that even come from? You should have ended 5 episodes ago, but no, okay. Then he scoffs and says, tell me that wasn't a turn on. And she was about to walk away, and he says, wait, I have one more question for you. If you could do anything right now, what would it be? And she stares at him, and he stares at her. And then she just pulls him by the shirt, and I don't know why I don't like this relationship, but the way that she pulls him. And then we see the last scene of Joey, where her knees were up to her head, and Dawson comes in. He apologized by saying, I was hoping you'd be here. Joey, I owe you an apology. I have been thoughtless and insensitive and self-absorbed to the extreme. But if you give me a chance to rightfully my balanced educational ways, I promise I will make every effort worthy of you. Joey then says, well, that was a mouthful. And to testify that was a mouthful, I couldn't even say that sentence. Even when he was saying it, I was just trying to comprehend what he just said. I'm like, that's your apology? You could do a lot better. You could buy her a wall and ask her to stay, but you never did that. You could paint a wall with her, but you never did that. Like, Pacey's general apologies to Joey is so much better than Dawson, and no one can convince me otherwise. And then she goes, I'm sorry for using the mother card. I kept it in my back pocket and it's way too easy. Dawson then sits next to her and goes, Joe, I don't know what I would do if I lost my mother. That's your comfort? That's your way of comforting her? I don't know what I would do if I lost my mother. She goes, it hurts, Dawson. You're born and you die and you make a lot of mistakes in between, Funny thing is, now that she's gone, I can't remember a single mistake. Dawson then asks what he can do to be a good friend. And Joey says, well, just for the night, can you put our rapid essential to adulthood on hold, please? We then see Dawson pull her by the hand, and they do the whole Jaws thing, followed by a bunch of laughter. But I just want to point out one last thing on this episode, that Katie Holmes' laugh is adorable. I love it. I don't really like scenes together. I don't like them together, but this scene was really, really, really adorable. 5 minutes of this episode, I want to recap something. 1, I want to say that there was a lot of things that we could have received from this. And one being, the whole plot twist of all of this was, we learned, 1, who Deputy Doug was, what Pacey's home life was. That was the main center of this whole episode. 2, we see Joey and how she reacts to Mitch and Gail. And I think one of the reasons why she reacted the way that she did was because at the end of the day, this was her home life in a lot of ways, because she's always there with Dawson. And so it made sense that she was having to also deal with this like Dawson. And then having to know, like, not only did her parents deal with a lot of stuff like this, but here she was having to deal with it all over again with Dawson's parent. So that is the end of this episode. I hope that you enjoyed it. I'm sorry that it was a lot shorter than my other episodes. I just want to put out this episode because I feel like even though it wasn't that much, I don't want to say stuff in the next episode and then completely forget why it was even there. And I'm not going to skip this episode, so it's not as short as it's supposed to be. But also, it's been a long week, so that's probably why it's a lot shorter than it is. And I hope that you enjoyed it. Make sure to follow me on Instagram, that's Glitter and Potter. Make sure to review after listening to this. And then make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, give it a like, give it a comment, tell me what you think about it. And lastly, remember to always DM me if you have anything that you want to add on to this. And that's everything I have to say this week. Bye!